Government secrets on the SCP Wiki? It just can't be true, can it? How would the Foundation, an organization known for its clandestine operations, keep something away from the public like that? And why would the government want this stuff to stay hidden? Well, we're about to find out. A lot of info-hazardous SCPs out there that could cause a lot of damage if they were to be leaked, so I'm gonna do just that. It's time for the top 5 SCPs the government doesn't want you to know. Coming in at number 5, we've got SCP-1128. See, once you know about this one, you're in danger. That's probably the main reason folks have toiled endlessly to keep it a secret. Sorry everyone, I'm gonna spill the beans. 1128 is an entity that manifests as a massive aquatic predator to anyone who has been given a full description of it. This description can be communicated in all sorts of different ways, with the anomalous qualities activating pretty much regardless of how the info is learned. Written, spoken, you name it. If you have a good idea of how this thing looks, you're probably going to be under its spell. At first, nothing will seem off. Maybe the person affected will avoid water a little more, choosing to stay on the beach rather than go swimming, showering instead of taking baths, that kind of thing. They might not know the reason, but that aversion will be there. If they do end up becoming completely immersed in water though, things get odd. Any onlookers will notice that after going underwater, the person will disappear completely. They'll quickly reappear, panicked and desperate to get out of the water. Why are they so frazzled, you may ask? Because they were somehow teleported into open water where 1128 is waiting. Once there, they'll be pursued by the enormous aquatic monster. If they're a quick swimmer, maybe they'll make it out alive. Then they'll live the rest of their lives absolutely terrified of water. And if they ever recount their experience, there's the risk of further spreading the infection. Cool. If they're a slow swimmer, on the other hand, whatever water they originally submersed themselves in will end up full of blood and other body bits. Not so lucky, these ones. To keep this knowledge on the down low, the Foundation has taken to giving any infected folks amnestics to erase their memory of this monster's features. If they don't remember what it looks like, it appears that they can't be brought into the beast's domain. If folks are allowed to keep living their lives with 1128 knowledge though, the effects of hydrophobia get stronger. They start to avoid things that they couldn't possibly immerse themselves in, like kiddie pools or even balls. Actually, I think there was a case where somebody was pulled into a glass of water. Yikes. Better keep that description a secret, eh? Coming in at number 4, we've got SCP-1259. World-ending prophecies are usually a bad thing, right? Especially when they tailor themselves to the reader and convince them of terrible stuff. Well, that's pretty much what SCP-1259 does. It's a piece of an ancient scroll written in a language that sort of resembles Hebrew. However, if anyone reads from the parchment, it will appear to be written in a language familiar to the reader. The message seems to be unique to whoever reads it, so it's always being reported as something different. However, the theme is always the same. It claims that there's going to be some sort of K-class event in the near future, giving a specific date on which it will occur, along with some omens and precursor events leading up to it. It will also take into account the reader's beliefs about the world, causing the apocalypse to be related to different things, from nukes to containment breaches to divine intervention. However, none of these prophecies ever seem to have come true. Reading from this scroll seems to be safe. Well, mostly safe. See, the person who reads the prophecy will then start to think of themselves as the chosen one. They'll take on this burden and believe that they're the only person who can prevent the prophecy from becoming true. Sometimes, to stop the end of the world, they'll have to take part in some displays of religious faith. Other times, they'll think it requires human sacrifice and political assassination. Regardless, almost 80% of folks who have read from the parchment will die before the supposed end date, and those who live beyond their deadline report feelings of depression, meaninglessness, and futility. So even if the world is safe from being annihilated, the folks reading from the scroll have a real tough time being alive and well. Probably is for the best that we keep this one locked up for everyone's own good. We've got enough folks with messiah complexes on the internet these days. The last thing we need to do is add anomalous qualities to the mix. Coming in at number 3, we've got SCP-1435. You ever seen that diagram of how Jim Henson made the first Rainbow Connection number work? It answers the questions folks had about how they managed to have Kermit hanging out on a log in the middle of a swamp in the middle of the woods. The deft puppetry makes it easy to forget, but Muppets aren't actually self-supporting entities. They need a human to be underneath them, making them move. You might be wondering why I'm bringing up Muppet trivia during an SCP video. Well, SCP-1435 is a Muppet, an especially dangerous one too. See, this Muppet is known as Grog, from the short-lived Grog and Tootie's Time Cave. A dim-witted cave monster, Grog tagged along with Tooty as they traveled through time. A fun, educational premise for sure. But there's something weird about Grog. Anyone who sees it will be overcome with thoughts concerning its endpoint. Where does it stop? Does it go underground? And what's under there are all common questions that don't stop once someone lays eyes on the puppet. And there's no good answer, as the puppet seems to fuse with whatever surface it's sitting upon, offering no real endpoint at all. And whenever someone's consumed by these thoughts about its end, Grog grows in size. Currently, the puppet measures in at over 100 meters long and hasn't shown any sign of shrinking. The Foundation has successfully hidden it away for the time being, but if it ever grows too big to ignore, it could be very difficult to keep it from becoming overwhelmingly large. Imagine thousands of people unable to ignore the fact that the endpoint isn't clear, causing Grog to grow exponentially large. It could cause major damage, not to mention let the cat out of the bag when it comes to this whole anomaly thing. Coming in at number 2, SCP-1603. Most folks haven't murdered someone, and probably wouldn't admit to having murdered someone. It's a pretty good way to go through life without any additional problems. Unfortunately, if you ever come into contact with SCP-1603, you're gonna find yourself in a bit of a pickle. This anomaly is an odd little phenomenon related to an old cold case from the 80s. A New York businessman was murdered by an unknown assailant and they never caught the culprit. Anyone who learns about this murder will soon be convinced that they were the one who did it. They'll rush to the nearest police station and admit to the crime, too. Any details they know about it will be incorporated into their confession, and if they learn any new details along the way, they'll adjust their story to match. This is extra strange when the person admitting to the crime wasn't born in time to be the killer or lived in a totally different country when the man was murdered. All sorts of different motives have been given by all the different folks admitting to the murder, from it being a crime of passion, maybe it was revenge, blackmail, or even a planned assassination. However, in many cases, most people involved in the story never actually existed, and at this point, folks aren't even sure if the businessman was real. Either way, nobody wants a bunch of random people flooding local law enforcement offices to confess to a decades-old crime that may or may not have ever happened. And finally, at number 1, SCP-1129. To cap off this list, let's talk about a weird one. This anomaly is a mass of some hard-to-identify substance that can flow past pretty much anything. It breaks apart and moves through things as if they're not even there at all. If someone witnesses this blob, they'll immediately be overwhelmed by the urge to flee. Fight or flight? Flight and flight. Once they're sufficiently far enough away from 1129, a new feeling will overcome them. The need to destroy it. It's just not right, it doesn't belong here, they've got to get rid of it. So they'll do their best to re-establish contact with the oddity, usually going to great lengths to do so. They'll scale walls, break into things, and generally do whatever it takes to find 1129. But once they see it again, that first urge returns. They'll want to flee from it, and often they'll forget that they did all the stuff to find it in the first place. We'll talk about a vicious cycle. So yeah, in the interest of keeping doors and windows secured, the Foundation wants this thing as low profile as possible. Goodness gracious. Now that you're chock full of classified information, it's time to share that knowledge with the world. Just be careful, who knows what the consequences could be. So what'd you think of the list? Did you already know about these secret SCPs? What are some other SCPs that you think folks would want to stay hidden? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's take a look at some of your more pernicious ones from the top 5 most disturbing scenes from horror movies, part 5. C. Hurd says some parts of The Fly with Jeff Goldblum's transformation and him regurgitating acid on that bloke really buzzed me out as a kid when I first watched it. Kind of felt for him, and it was well acted as well. The way he twitches is messed up. Great stuff. A true body horror stomach-churning classic. Steve Duncan says the only thing more disturbing than any of these scenes, the fact that we as an audience enjoy these movies. Is it disturbing or oddly comforting? I'll let you make up your mind on that one. Nate Rivers says the ending to Creep was actually disturbing considering the subtleness of it. I don't know what's subtle about an axe to the head, but hey. And Hunter Otsotsuki says, when we getting more SCP videos? Right now. We just did it. And that's all the time we have for today. I'm gonna hail a cab and then just walk away from it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. A true body horror stomach churning. A true body horror stomach churning classic. I feel like I looked ridiculous saying that. Hold on. To keep this knowledge on the down low, the Foundation is taken to giving a baby. Excuse me. Any onlookers were noticed that after going, Any onlooker, it could become very difficult to keep it from becoming overwhelmingly large. Now I said become twice in that sentence. Gosh darn it.